We are recording the meeting, and that'll help us share it with those who weren't able to join us. So thank you for joining us to discuss our Tempe Maker District Design Guidelines. My name is Shauna Warner, and I'm with Neighborhood Services, and I'm helping out with today's meeting. You are encouraged to ask questions during the presentation. You can use the chat feature or raise your hand. And we'll go ahead and call on you and help moderate some of that. So again, thank you for joining us. And I'm going to turn it over to Jill Bushbacher with Economic Development.
Thanks, Shauna. Welcome, everyone. I just want to thank my colleagues from Community Development, Arts and Culture, Engineering and Transportation, Communications and Sustainability for their work with these guidelines, especially Ambika Adhikari, who's a planner with our Community Development Department, and Shauna Warner, as you met just recently. So thanks to all for being involved. These guidelines help define the look and feel of this area and further support our Innovation Hub initiative in economic development to enhance key employment areas and help us promote new jobs and investment and placemaking in this area. This is not meant to be regulatory, but can be used to guide city and private development as new projects come about. And just kind of as a friendly reminder to everyone that that's kind of the goal of this exercise and of these guidelines. And we're really looking forward to your input and your feedback. We've hired some terrific consultants with Architecton to help us with this project. And now I'd like to turn it over to Tom Riley with Architecton to get us started.
Thanks, Jill. Hey, first of all, thank you everybody for taking some time out of your busy day to show that you care and you're interested in your neighborhood. I'm Tom Riley. I'm a principal at Architecton, joining with Brian Esparza, who's been working really hard on this project with us the last couple months. And we will be joined shortly by John Kane, who's got stuck in traffic, but will be able to join us and actually lead the presentation after we get through the intro, hopefully. We've been really fortunate to get to work with the city staff and a number of groups within the two districts. But I want to take a moment and do a quick poll and see who we have on the phone. We'll be using the chat feature for this question, and then we'll also be using the chat feature for a couple of other questions we're going to ask during the presentation, and ask that if you have questions during the presentation, to go ahead and jot them down in there. The goal here is to get information from you. We have been working with a lot of people, but we're not done with the guidelines yet, and we did that on purpose. We wanted to get it to a spot where we could kind of talk about some ideas and some directions, but still have time to include your input on it before we take it to the DRC and eventually then to the council, probably in the April timeframe. Let me see if I can see. Shauna, can you see the chat? See what?
Yeah, I've got the poll up and people are answering. So I'll go ahead then and end it so we can all see.
Okay. We got a lot of half of us are others. Not sure what that means. But we do have a couple property owners. That's good. We'll talk a little bit about the impact on the residents surrounding the district. That's really good that we've got that. And the businesses around the district are an important part of this too, because they'll be impacted by the future of this hub. Why don't you go to the first slide, Brian, and we'll get started on the intro. We're going to talk about a few things this afternoon. The first is a little bit about the guidelines. We'll talk about the character of the district that we've seen. We've identified a number of goals, and we'll pretty much focus on those today. We're going to ask for some input on opportunities from you on how those goals might be leveraged, and make sure that we have the right goals. We've got some big ideas about catalytic strategies. That's sort of what can a report like this, what can guidelines like this really do, and how will they best be used by the people in the district in the future. we have split the guidelines up into 7 categories. You can see them there on the screen. One of the things that we found is that things don't neatly fit into each one of these. They cross over a lot. So there's a lot of things that we might do in building design that have to do with sustainability, and activating public and private spaces overlaps with art integration and mixed use. So we're trying to set the guidelines up so that those chapters may repeat things that are in other chapters. But that way, if you wanted to dive into just art integration, you kind of got the whole view of it, even though some of the things also appear in the sustainability chapter. So that was one of the early ideas that we had. So why don't we go to the next one? We'll talk about the guidelines real quickly, Brian. So the City Council identified 8 distinct innovation hubs around the city. And we're helping with the guidelines for the first 2, for your district, the Maker District, and also for the Smith Hub, which is south of Tempe Marketplace. 2 extremely unique districts in character. There will be some overlap in some of the things that we find about them, but what we're finding is that what works for one hub probably isn't the same as what works for the other hub. I think the city's goal is really to leverage the existing character, the existing businesses that exist now in the district, and through implications of mixed use, infrastructure improvements, of encouraging new appropriate development within the districts, create new job investments, create the idea of placemaking, make your district a better neighborhood to be, safer and more interesting, and then attract the quality workforce. And that's really one of the great things about the district, is that these are embedded. It's really unique in the valley to have these light industrial areas so close to the downtown, so close to the transportation system that the city of Tempe has taken great care to enhance. It's so close to the airport. So we want to leverage all of those key things and make them even better, and get to reach the full potential of each one of these districts. Brian, you want to do the next slide, and we'll see what Jill. I'm going to repeat something that Jill said, because it's really important, and we've been working really hard, even with staff, to understand that this is not a regulatory document. And that's not the intent of it. This is instead a set of guidelines that can be used by owners and future developers to guide decisions and help have conversations with the city and make good design decisions. That doesn't mean spending more money. It means making wise decisions that reinforce the fabric of this unique place where you either live by or you have businesses in. We want to maintain the character. The character that you have is authentic, and we're going to use that word several times this afternoon, because it's really important. The goal is not to lose that authenticity, but to leverage the authenticity. The goal is not to replace businesses. The goal is to augment the businesses. The city is extremely proud of the businesses that are there now, and just want to make the opportunities for your business to grow or change over time, as well as to bring in other compatible uses. We also want to make sure that that these ideas and possible opportunities get communicated, especially as we start rolling out demonstration projects, that people understand why they're being done, and we can also share the successes of those too, and the lessons learned as we go through. So this document is intended as both a short-term document and a long-term document. So it's there to guide you and the city on what are the initial opportunities, as well as take a look at what the long-term outlook with is and how to work towards those longer-term goals. We're ready for the next slide. So what we saw coming in, I mean, I'm a longtime Valley resident and have owned a business in Tempe for the last decade or so. And I went to school at ASU, and the thing that always struck me about what made this district unique for me personally over all the years is, seeing the stainless steel towers and tanks at the dairy. And I think that sort of sets the tone for the whole district. There is a lot of specific food processing and packaging businesses. The district is made up of fairly large parcels, fairly large buildings, large areas of parking. It also has the existing infrastructure includes the large streets required to get the large trucks in and out for these distribution centers. The goal is the goal that we've seen is that needs to remain. We need to be careful that we don't do anything to make it harder for the existing businesses, that is to make it easier and more pleasant. The other thing that struck us about the district is that you're surrounded on three sides by a huge stock of established single-family homes. And that can be a real benefit. And we'll look at that as we get into some of the individual chapters on how that might be leveraged to help make some of these other things happen. You've got the hospitality on the west, and we talked briefly already about the adjacency to not only ASU, but downtown Tempe and the multimodal transportation available there, as well as what's super unique for the Valley is your adjacency to an international airport. And then the other piece that's really kind of fascinating is the rail lines that actually define the eastern boundary of the district. Priest Road defines the west end, and then it's bounded by Southern and Broadway. So it seems to have, as you're driving through the city, as you go by, that it seems to have a unique character. This is one of the places that we wanted to stop and ask everybody on the call today in the meeting, what do you see as identifying features of the Maker District? What makes it unique? What makes it stand out? How do you know that you've come into a special place? If we wanted to take a moment and everybody kind of fill out what you think, and free to put in more than one answer in the chat. We want to make sure that we're looking at this district at it from the correct direction for everybody, to make sure that we haven't missed anything. Chat. Yeah, Shauna put the question. We're trying to get some input on there.
Also, while we're doing this, Tom, this is Jill again. I just like to ask, Lieutenant Still, are you on the line with us? Can you unmute?
Yes, I am on the line and I see the question.
Excellent. If you might be able to provide a little bit of information or perhaps reach out to this individual that has the question for us about homelessness.
Sure.
And Tom John has joined us.
John, this is a good time to turn it over to you. Okay.
Perfect. Hi, everybody.
Hey, John, we're just at when we were asking what makes the area unique. So we had a couple comments.
Great.
not just buildings, but open space, green spaces, gathering spaces. Most people don't see it as a unique district, an industrial area with ugly buildings. I think the district offers some really great opportunities for green space, meeting some of the city's sustainability goals, and then echoing the dairy plant as a thing that makes the area unique. Dairy is an icon, and the street grid is a great way to showcase businesses. Alameda, a well-used east-west bikeway and construction improvements will make it an asset. And Kirk, we understood. He said what would make it unique is more open green space. So looking to what could add.
Great.
I think, Kirk, you'll like where this is going. We thought that that was a great opportunity too. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. Well, if you want, we can kind of roll through it. Got one more. Oh, we're starting to get great ideas. What I would suggest on this is, if we want to move forward, is that as things come to you in the chat, come to you later on, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat, and we'll be capturing that and using it to help inform the guidelines as we go forward.
And even after this meeting, if ideas come up, please get them to us, and we'll incorporate them.
Yeah, we'll be finishing with a website that we hope that you share with your friends and other people in and around the district. There'll be another more complete survey in there and a chance to express opinions on that website.
So John, then I think I didn't know if you were taking over, or Tom, you're going to continue.
I can go. I apologize for being late. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Yeah, so let's go to the next slide. And again, we appreciate these really great ideas. So the ideas, what we're trying to do is establish some goals and opportunities, and how we can do that in terms of augmenting the light industrial character with complementary mixed uses. We don't want to lose, I think, the character. What we want to do is kind of enhance it possibly, and help kind of see it evolve with these kind of mixed use ideas and some of the things that you're going to see here later on. We want to promote and support the grassroots efforts and keeping it authentic, and then finding that kind of unique brand. And then looking for those synergies that could potentially start happening within this unique place. Next, please. So we think before we, to get things started, we think they're really important to have some catalytic strategies, some things that will get things started that just kind of have to happen. The idea of harnessing public and private investments. We think it's really important to create business community associations so everybody can start getting together and talking about these ideas, the people that own the land and the businesses that are within these districts. We want to get those going. We want to create pilot demonstration projects. There's some certain things that are coming up with infrastructure and some other things that our projects are going to be doing anyway, and kind of how can we make those demonstration projects that can kind of advance these kind of ideas that we're proposing. And then storytelling and communication of those pilot project successes and opportunities. So again, keeping the dialogue going and getting the excitement up. Next, please. So the guidelines will consist of basically this table of contents, where we'll be talking about sustainability, various ways. And I should also point out that a lot of these are interrelated. So things that happen in sustainability will also happen in building design, possibly in mixed use, activating public-private spaces. Art integration is really important, how the artists can be really integral in helping advance and helping creating that identity and being part of this. The idea of the building designs, there's great buildings that can be used in multiple different ways. uses change, but the buildings are great frames that an infrastructure that can be remodeled potentially to have that versus tearing things down. I think is one of the big things that we're really recommending. How to create gateways and signage to help kind of create the identity and the kind of the branding, if you will, throughout these districts. And then the importance of bringing in the multimodal transportation and pedestrian flow without compromising, obviously, the important truck flows that are already in place. Next, please. So we're just kind of going through each of these chapters, kind of the idea of the goals of sustainability, kind of plugging in and aligning with a lot of, all these chapters will align with current plans and urban programs and, master plans and reports that have been done. So we're making sure that we're looking at all that work that's been done before and referencing those in each of these. So with this document, we'll hopefully kind of bring a lot of these things together and look for those synergetic opportunities. Looking for the walkability and transportation and maintaining, again, like we said, maintaining the building character, try not to lose it, but enhance it and augment it. Improving the existing infrastructure and leveraging the existing assets. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. And what we'll be getting in the guidelines are different strategies to achieve this. The way of green infrastructure, the idea of, again, adaptive reuse, all types of kind of really kind of interesting things that the Sustainability Commission and the city have been looking for ways that can implement. Next, please. The mixed use guidelines are, again, about this idea of using these relatively large open spaces, these existing buildings. A lot of them are distribution, warehouses, and it's already kind of started happening in certain areas where some of these have been remodeled into possibly offices, the possibility of can we infill some workforce housing, artisan housing, artist studios, a variety of different kind of uses that potentially can kind of exist in these existing structures. Next, please. There's a lot of open space, both on the private side as well as the private side, that have a lot of potential in terms of being kind of reconfigured and brought to life. That can really kind of help. And there's, like, one of the things that's really unique about the Maker is that there's these railroad spurs that have been abandoned. That could be these amazing linear parks potentially, or connective linear parks that can help connect the district together. The idea of a lot of parking surface, asphalt retention basins, and other things that are completely unused, and we can show within the guidelines different ways to kind of rethink how those can be brought to life and activated with a variety of different techniques and ideas. Next, please. The importance of the art and how to integrate art into this. The idea that artists can help drive the economic development and help animate the district is really important. There's been a lot of conversations about places for artists to work, to perform, to fabricate. There's a lot of things happening on the Smith Hub where that's already starting to occur, different synergies. There's automobile restoration companies. There's a variety of different kinds of fabricators and people that are helping produce the art that the artists are creating. And we're looking for those synergies here as well. Next, please. The building design guidelines. So instead of, again, hopefully not tearing buildings down, but actually how to bring them up to current codes, more sustainable energy reduction kind of techniques, how to adaptively kind of reuse them in a variety of ways, how to even reconsider building heights potentially so that they become more functional for some of the new programs that are needed within the district. The gateways and signage guidelines, again, trying to find those kind of iconic elements that really kind of help identify the character of the area. And I think I heard or saw in one of the comments, again, the dairy has a really kind of iconic kind of quality to it. But other strategies that we might include, like, do we do additional signage on the street signs? We're looking at, I think from the city's point of view, replacing all the streetlights with more energy efficient LED lighting. There's an opportunity to add banners to those, maybe working with artists to help kind of create that graphic that might be able to kind of permeate throughout the district. Next, please. And then the multimodal transportation. So the notion, again, as was mentioned earlier, is these are not isolated islands within the city, but there's a lot of interesting adjacencies around the perimeter, and how do we make those connections through to the rest of the city to make those connections, and then even internally within the district itself. And again, making it more pedestrian friendly, and ways to do this in short term, like obviously what we're seeing with the program of activating the streets with just simple graphics to more permanent solutions throughout. But again, a variety of strategies and ideas to kind of enhance and make the multimodal work with the important aspect of not compromising the truck vehicular flows that need to exist within the districts as well. So that's kind of a quick overview of kind of the guidelines and the goals, the different chapters and strategies. So we're really interested if you have other thoughts, things that we're missing, things that don't seem maybe right. We're early enough in this where we really would like your input and looking for other ideas and thoughts, again, to make this really reflect this unique place within our city. Thank you. If there's any questions or any thoughts, let's feel free to put it in the chat, and happy to answer.
Yeah, I would like to thank Kirk. Kirk, thank you for the positive contributions. He finished with an idea about a playground, which is kind of interesting. I don't think that's something that we've considered. We have talked about the ideas of adding greenery through the urban forestry program. It reinforces that. And then I think Bonnie Richardson made a comment that I want to make sure it doesn't get missed, is that there are plans underway right now for street improvements on Alameda all the way through the district. And it will include improved bike paths and landscape, as well as still reinforce the ability for the size of vehicles that need to use that road, and make sure that that doesn't get lost.
Curious if there's any thoughts regarding kind of the various kind of chapters that we have in the document. We're trying to cover kind of the full spectrum, but if there's anything you think we've missed, we'd love to hear about. Just open to any thoughts you might have.
There was another idea that Harley, that we have talked about, and that's in the arts piece. We clearly got this really early discussion, got into an early discussion about not just creating a place for public art. I mean, that's kind of a given. The city has a great program for that, but how do we keep the arts community here in Tempe? And how is there an opportunity to create spaces and opportunities for artists here in town? So we've been talking with the Arts Council and some other groups to see what's missing. You certainly have a great stock of housing. I believe there's a lot of artists that already live in the neighborhoods around you. They're all looking for affordable space that they could go into. So it seems like there's some very large spaces, and there might be opportunities to co-share with an artist. There's a couple of different projects around the valley that do that very successfully. There was also a need, and I think you mentioned it in your last comment here, about performance spaces. And certainly one of the unique aspects of this district is the rail spurs that are now unused. So there's some really interesting land there with some really interesting backdrops that might prove valuable for either temporary or permanent performance areas for artists. I think, John, what was the other one? We were talking about rehearsal space is at a premium.
Yep.
So I'm glad that you saw that. Oh, interesting. And then Joel talks about some opportunities for using all that concrete that we've got out there that goes to waste after hours and on weekends. And he's suggesting pickleball And then one of the other things that we haven't really addressed yet is the idea of that you bring up, Joel, and that's like an outdoor activity health fitness route through the district, so that even people on lunch hour or break go out and do a 20-minute walk, or maybe a number of different 20-minute loops around the district, so that they could get to see parts that maybe they don't normally see and still get their exercise in, and keep their watches happy that they're moving.
Maybe going up to some of the earlier questions in the chat. If Tom or John want to respond, Harley was asking about a way to limit ladder activities. Some of the industries in that area can have louder. Oh,
and I think there was even an example of the duck companies,
yeah,
and the noise that's created. And I think that's a really good point that we really hadn't thought about. That is the chat. Well, I guess we had talked a little bit about that with the mixed use. If we start to bring in some of these micro housing units and stuff, what is the compatibility of being adjacent to some of these? I think what we're hoping is that with the new development, and definitely with the new landscape, that we might be able to help screen and absorb some of the noise that goes along. That's just a natural part of these industries.
Yeah, and I think that in each property is going to be evaluated kind of case by case basis, right? It's like everything's infill now, so those existing uses and then kind of looking at kind of how to control future uses without, again, trying to we don't want to push out the industry. That's what's really important here. We're trying to figure out how to kind of create that sweet spot. But there's examples, I think, around the country where these kinds of housing, especially artisan housing, where they're kind of okay with a lot of that kind of feel and character. And a lot of that, the noise and stuff isn't 24/7. So I think that's also part of it. It's just the hours that these are being used. But it is a really important thing that we will definitely address, and appreciate you bringing that up. What else we got on there, Shauna? Let's see here.
Ron made a comment about the Cox building caught his eye in your pictures, that the roof seems built for solar installation.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we have identified within the sustainability, the building design chapter. I think both is that both of the districts have these really large roofs that are perfect for solar. Now, there's a lot of times there's structural things that need to be taken into account in terms of uplift and some other things, but still, it seems like it's a great opportunity to layer in solar in a lot of these projects.
And I know we've talked.
Go ahead, please. Sorry.
Oh, you can go. I was going to move on to something else, Tom. So if you want to mention something on that subject.
No, I was going to move on to Dave's comment.
Okay, just earlier, I know we were talking about arts, but Rob Moore brought up the proximity to Denell Plaza and some of the established art scene, small business hub there. And that he was glad to hear you're looking to leverage the existing vibe that provides an interesting contrast to other traditional suburban spaces. So,
yeah, I think that's and how can we connect and create if we remember the arts plan that was generated a few years ago, it talked about a lot of these kind of ideas. So these become places for that to happen. The trick, and I think one of the questions, how do we make it affordable, is still one of the challenges that we're working on. So we're looking for those people that have maybe empty space that they're not using all of their building, or does the city do some spaces? Is there a private partnership, private-public partnership? Those are a lot of things that we're going to be studying and recommending on. But yeah, it's exciting to kind of look at where we can kind of go with the arts, and I think there's a lot of need and a lot of desire for that.
And then Dave asked about who will be evaluating each property. And I think, Dave, it's not that this report will be evaluating each property. It will be part of the guidelines that it will be up to the individual project to evaluate who their neighbors are and what type of uses are around it, and then be able to adjust to those and be able to communicate with city staff how they're evaluating those and what kind of steps they're taking to either leverage or help protect from those, depending on what the issue is. We've also gotten a couple comments, John, about solar installations, either possible ones or new ones or existing ones.
For solar, I mean, there's a lot of ideas that we've been talking about. I think even over in the Smith Hub, where solar's gone over parking lots to create shade. Again, because of these roof sizes, there's a lot of potential for solar. And it'd be great, maybe even some of the outdoor activity spaces to provide shade structures that are also solar. As we all know, we need shade. But if we could do more than one thing, I think that's one of the things we've been trying to do within these guidelines, is that everything has more than one purpose. And it makes it a lot more probably cost effective to look at things that way.
And then Jeff, Shauna, correct me if I'm wrong, but the link that we have up on the screen right now, the tempe.gov/maker district, will include this presentation on it.
Correct.
The recording of it.
Yes, so for anyone who joined in late, then you can get the full presentation, including the recording. The recording takes a couple days, but we'll have this meeting presentation up shortly.
Did we miss anybody's questions, or John, we had a journalist asked us about our contact information, so we're at architecton.com. And someone from ASU. And then Joel just reinforced, yeah, I think that one of the goals, Joel, that we are specifically talking about is what could we do? I know that one of the more global things that Tempe's been talking about is how to keep artists in Tempe and provide the type of resources that they need. And we think you have a lot of them in this district already. It's a matter of leveraging them and getting people educated about the opportunity and the advantages of having that as part of the district.
Yeah, and I think, I'm sorry, Tom. I'm sorry.
No, please.
Yeah, I think the point is, and I think Jeff's asking the question about the housing is probably one of the most critical things that we're trying to do, that the general plan allows for housing, but what we want to make sure is that we're not doing market rate, tearing down a lot of the existing buildings and putting up market rate. That's not the goal here. The idea is to figure out how to, what we're calling tactically infilling workforce and artisan housing in a lot of the open land, which you'll start seeing is this idea of incremental kind of infill. So we're seeing it in downtown and others where you can keep existing buildings and still there's plenty of room to add housing, studios, other things on the same property. And we're going to show examples of how to do that in these guidelines. But the goal is to definitely, figure out how to get workforce, affordable, and artisan housing kind of layered into this district. That is one of the biggest, I think, objectives that we're trying to create with this. And then I think, as mentioned earlier, is also then have the amenities and other things that can support that as well. So these are livable working neighborhoods that kind of do both. It's really exciting. I think a really kind of cool vision. And
Joel mentions co-working space. I'm thinking that's in direct response to co-working for artists, so studio space. And I think Mon Orchid in downtown Phoenix is a real good example of how successful those can be. And there are certainly similar spaces existing in the district now that could do the same thing with the right tenants, the right people. I love that one. Who said that? Rob Moore. Because of Google Maps and that we're all now looking at the neighborhoods from the air, is there a way to make the district stand out either through common roof colors or street color components?
That's interesting.
So you not only see it from the road, but you see it when you go to find directions on Google Maps. I love that, Rob. That's awesome. I love the comment about creativity is often noisy. It should be a safe place for being a bit more noisy than others, part of the identity. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I mean, that's exactly, I think, this isn't a single family residential kind of, place we're creating. This is hopefully turning this into a 24/7 type place where you can go to artist studios and the fabricators and the makers, the people that are making all types of really cool stuff. How do we celebrate that, keep them in the city? How do they take advantage of all the adjacencies that are nearby? It's just got a lot of amazing potential. And then I'll come back to the trees, but Harley mentioned, yeah, it's great. Noise is great, but not for the existing residents of that home. So like everything else, Harley, the district would need to be zoned correctly and sort of thought about. The center of the district is certainly different than the edges, especially with the surrounding single family home established neighborhoods that are there. So your point is taken. John, we got multiple votes for trees, so I know that that was really high on your list too. And the cities too, you know, we've had discussions with city staff, and almost all the discussions include the idea of the urban forestry that the city is taking very seriously, and will be leveraged into this district as well.
Yeah, the Max 6 co-working, that's a really good example too. Yeah, because it's not always just artisans, and what does art mean, and fabrication, and even places to photograph and perform. It's such a broad spectrum. And again, these buildings are really set up nicely for a lot of these kinds of uses. We've been seeing, you know, YouTube studios, you know, and some of the other things that are starting to kind of happen, uses that never would have considered back when the zoning code was originally written, right? I mean, things are changing. So the idea is that we're creating the framework for those kinds of things to happen over time, and keep it really rich and vital.
So co-working spaces for TikTok creators.
It's amazing.
Actually, the industrial look would go really well for some
Absolutely.
filmmaking and backdrops. It's something that could be leveraged.
I'm just wondering too, Maja, are you on with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Did you want to make a couple of comments? Maja's with our arts and culture division, and you know, she's been working closely with this team, and maybe you just want to, there's been quite a few comments about how, you know, the arts and culture and the arts plan and how it's all integrated.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks everyone for these comments. Brendan Ross is also on the call. He's our Deputy Director for Arts and Culture. So I also want to include him if he had anything else to add. Yes, these are all things that we are also excited about. And it's great to see the comments, and we're also working towards those. Brendan, do you want to add anything more specific?
Yeah, look, I think, you know, those on the call have variously picked up on the Arts and Culture Plan of 2015, and it feels like a great opportunity to realise some of the vision of that plan through the design guidelines that have been talked about tonight. So some great opportunities here potentially for artists and makers to be, you know, genuinely involved from the inside. I think, rather than as just an attachment to, but actually really be part of revitalising and energising this district. So, not that it needs revitalising; it's probably the wrong choice of words, but to you know, kind of be part of its evolution. Yeah. And I kind of like what you know, this notion of, you know, catalyst. I'm interested to hear what others think about that. You know, that you know, to seed some pilot projects. You know, how we tell the stories about the successes and learnings of those projects. The involvement of the businesses in the areas to in public-private partnership to collaborate to, you know, see this be a successful idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, these are great. I'm just kind of scrolling through all the comments. These are fantastic. This is really good stuff. Really appreciate it.
Jack, Hardy was mentioned in some of our discussions with staff. I think Alameda, the design for Alameda is a little bit further along, but Hardy is definitely on everyone's radar. So your point is well taken, and I think the city staff is on that in a good way. And there's the link that somebody asked for.
And then the link to the comment form will also has the meeting presentation.
And we encourage you to share these links with people that couldn't be here today. So that's the intent of leaving it open for a week or so that we can garner as many public opinions. And again, it comes back to the authenticity idea. This is not something that's going to work if a consultant comes along and says it should be this and comes up with all these great ideas. But unless it's embraced, unless it grows somewhat naturally out of the district, we'll lose what makes the district so special now. And the goal is to not let that happen. Rob, thanks for the comment on the historical preservation and helping people reframe that. That doesn't mean from the 1890s anymore. We're now looking at losing a lot of our great mid-century building stock and features. So I'm glad that there's people like you out there looking out for them. I don't know the actual, John, do you know the project he's talking about at Hardy and Broadway?
There's a bank building, I think.
Got it.
I'm trying to remember which one it is. I
Yeah.
know there's one. Yeah, the bank. Yeah. Okay, yeah. No, absolutely. And again, I think the goal is to not be tearing buildings down, but just being really kind of careful about, keeping them up to code and more energy efficient and reusing them and possibly infilling around them. But yeah, there's a lot of amazing potential, and it's the most sustainable thing to do, right? Not tear things down and throw them in the junkyard, but try to
Repurpose them.
So yeah.
Joy, this is a really important part, and maybe we didn't get it enough in this part of the presentation to you, but although we're talking about the district, we think it's really important to talk about how the district connects to all the other amenities outside of the district. And so your idea is perfect about how do we create those pathways, those options that you don't have to jump in your car to go get some dinner or go see some entertainment or go get your dry cleaning, whatever it is, that there's other ways to move around the city and into the adjacent neighborhoods. So I think your comment is right on. And it is, to me, again, having grown up here, it is one of the things that really sets Tempe apart is you are way ahead of the other communities in the valley and recognizing the need for that and putting in the infrastructure for it. Scrolling back to make sure we haven't missed anything.
This is excellent. A lot of great input from the community.
Yeah, fantastic.
All right. Well, I think we can go ahead and wrap up. John and team, did you all have anything else you wanted to add?
No, we just really appreciate it. This is always what we hope when we have these kind of meetings, is that all this kind of good stuff comes out of it. So thank you very, very much. And we're not done for tonight. So hopefully if you have other thoughts, please get them to us, and we would love to incorporate them into this plan. So we're really excited about this plan. It's rare that we get to create an overall vision, so that people will have to kind of hopefully work with. We have the DRC, the city, everybody to kind of plug into to make something greater than just one project at a time, but looking at kind of a whole district as a whole is a rare opportunity. So we're really excited to be part of this. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you to everyone that attended. And we look forward to additional input and interaction. And you're welcome to join us for the additional public meeting we have on Friday about the Smith Hub design guidelines at 9 a.m. It will also be online, and you can find that on the city website. And again, thank you everyone for your time and your expertise and input. Have a wonderful evening.